views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters and editors and writers and filmmakers and videographers. And I underscore that because our second segment has a wonderful Bronx videographer in it that we're going to really enjoy some of the stuff that he puts out. And we do it to give you an idea of who's putting stuff out. And you can get the idea of seeing what they're thinking about and as they put stuff out in the Bronx. This evening, we're going to start our program off with Morgan C. Mullings. It's the first time she has been on our program. She is a writer, a political writer for PoliticsNY. And nice to have you with us, Morgan.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
One of the things people say, well, wait a minute, PoliticsNY, there's something familiar. This is the insert that we get in the Bronx Times. So I am really interested in, because we haven't talked about this on this program or any of our programs yet, is the whole idea of the city council. And you wrote about the city council passing the non-citizen voting rights bill, which has been controversial. I mean, I've talked to people, and some people who are progressive thinking are like, wait a minute, I don't know if I like this. So just tell me about your coverage of it, what you learned from being around the people passing it, and where it's at, and then we'll break it down.
Yeah, so there's a conversation going on nationally right now, right, about who is a citizen and who is not, what kind of or how much immigration do we want in our city? And what does it mean to be an American? And obviously voting rights are at the center of that conversation. And so this is New York City's biggest entry into that conversation, where we have a huge immigrant population. The bill allows over 800,000 people who are not included in the voting process to vote, right? That's a very large sum of people. And so New York is saying, well, we have this big sum of people that considers themselves Americans, yet this quintessential American right, this amazing thing that we do where we get up and we go to the polls and we vote, they're not participating in that. And so they really, they're kind of the black sheep in the conversation in terms of deciding to put forth a bill that says we want non-citizens to vote, because across America right now, what's happening is states like Florida, Arizona are putting out bills specifically making sure that only American citizens can vote. So that's really what this bill and the conversation around it is about.
It's a very interesting conversation, and I think about it in terms of one of the foundations of our democracy, and that is no taxation without representation. So if you are an immigrant but have not achieved citizenship status, you could be working, and there many people are working and paying taxes, and yet you don't have a say in how that goes. So that would be, to me, one very large argument as to why people should be allowed to vote, because they're paying the fare. It is, as I said, a foundation of our democracy, and yet they haven't had the opportunity to vote. This affects many, many people. This is not like one thing. It's practically 1/8 of the city, isn't it?
Yes, and that's one of the biggest arguments for the bill is no taxation without representation. I've been to a couple of the rallies for this bill, and they will chant that. But city councilors hear that, specifically Mr. Coleman Yeager, who was against the bill. During his remarks in the debate just before they were going to vote, he said, well, we do represent them. Even though they didn't vote for us, we represent them every day. We create laws that involve them, and we consider them in our daily conversations in those chambers. And he was very passionate about that. And so there are really strong responses to that as well.
I got to tell you that doesn't wash with me, and it wouldn't wash with those who threw the tea overboard at the Boston Tea Party because they said we want the opportunity to vote, and it's presumptuous of that council member to say we represent them, but we don't hear what they have to say, or we don't, I don't go for that particular argument.
Right.
Personally.
Well, you have to ask yourself, who are they going to listen to first if there are two people in front of them? The person who's about to go to the ballot box next November, or the person who can't?
Right,
it's most likely going to be the voter, people who are able to donate in their district.
So as I said a moment ago, I talked to some people who are generally progressive thinking, and they said, wait a minute, you got to be a citizen to vote. And that is also a compelling argument. To me, the biggest issue is that gaining citizenship has not been an easy process. And there are many people who now will have the right to vote who would like to be citizens, but it's been a difficult step process to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking earlier about Mr. Ruben Diaz Sr., right? From the Bronx himself. And he was very public about being against this bill, yet he is a fervent DACA supporter. He supports the rights of DACA recipients, and he's been very public about that, yet he was very firm in his belief that you should be a citizen to vote. A new council member, Anna Vernikov, who was just inaugurated. She did get to vote on this bill. She's also an immigrant. And she was able to acquire citizenship on her own time and became a lawyer. And she spoke about that during the debate as well. And she was against the bill as well. She said, I got my citizenship. And she believed that citizenship is intrinsically tied to voting. So while there are so many, and I really want to stress that there is a lot of immigrant support for this bill and non-citizen support for this bill, there are some New York citizens who are from other countries who say, I'm an American because I took the test. Now, not everybody has the same resources. Not everybody speaks the same language.
Absolutely. This is something that, of course, Congress has to deal with. And unfortunately, they've got many things ahead of this particular concept. Yeah, I'll tell you, I saw Adonis Rodriguez on CNN after this bill passed, and he's, it was very interesting. It was highly politicized. He said, you know what? We're looking at, Georgia and Alabama and all these other places that are limiting the rights of people of color and others to vote. This is our way of saying, you know what? We're going to balance the scale. I thought, right or wrong, I thought that was an interesting point to say, well, wait a minute. If they're going to make it harder for people, for people of color to vote, then we're going to say in New York City, we're going to make it easier.
Yeah, that's definitely, he was very passionate about that, especially on the day of the vote. He was really harping on that point that other people may say this about Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, West Africans, but this is what New York says. However, when you talk about balancing the scale, right, I want to bring that number back in, 800,000 people. That is a huge number. What has to be kept in mind is that such a large number of immigrants in New York, making this kind of decision means that some neighborhoods are going to go from blue to red and vice versa. Some neighborhoods are going to be completely overturned politically. And on the flip side, there's a little bit of research out there from the Brennan Center for Justice and a couple of other places that show that even when non-citizens get voting rights in other cities, it doesn't necessarily always increase turnout. And so on the flip side, it may give this wonderful responsibility that some people are not sure they want to participate in. And so though New York is taking a huge stance, it's extremely hard to see in the future how that's going to play out.
That's fascinating that you said that. I was thinking about voter turnout when you mentioned the number 800,000. The winning council races get 3,000 votes, 5,000 votes. If that voting block were to come out, they could really influence. In fact, I've been reading a lot about potential challenges to longtime council members by progressive people. This could be the opportunity to get them in. One final kind of line of questioning I want to ask about. This is also very fundamental. Voting rights and voting bills come from up in Albany. And there is a constitutional question as to whether or not the city has the, it would be like the city to change the funding formula for education. That comes out of New York State. Whether or not, the city council can, put a stake in the ground in this case. Do you have thoughts on that? I mean, is this going to come up? We're going to have state legislators on Bronx Talk this week, so I'll ask them. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah. It absolutely will come up.
Yeah.
So not only is there serious opposition from some city leaders and some immigrants in the city, but at the state level, the New York State Republican Party is ready to take legal action. They held their own press conference, and though it was a huge party on the day of the bill passing, there is a bit of a dark cloud over that, and that is the legality. Now, in the state constitution, which the New York GOP is arguing, it does say that citizens have the right to vote. But if you ask Mr. Ydanis Rodriguez, he says it doesn't say only. And so though voting rights come from the state, they also come from the federal level. And so many of the supermajority of sponsors will say, the federal government says, as a locality, you have the choice to decide. You can introduce your own laws when it comes to voting rights. So there is this bit of tug of war between the state and the city. And when those lawsuits come through, I will absolutely be watching to see how they play out.
Of course, you mentioned flipping from blue to red to blue. I mean, in the Bronx, it's a level of blue because we don't have any a Republican. We haven't had a Republican elected official on any level since like 2004. So for us, it's how far left or how far Democratic they're going to be. It's really a fascinating question. We will watch. I wonder, and just the last thing, I wonder if it was wise for Democrats in New York City to take this on when there is a big, midterm election coming up in Congress, and they basically gave the Republicans something else to chew on and use against them. Maybe had they waited, it might have been better, from a political point of view.
There is. They had a chance to wait, actually. There was a motion to send it back, tighten it up a little bit.
I think that came from Mark Jonai of the Bronx, isn't it?
Exactly, right. And it was denied, and there were counselors who supported the bill who, wanted some more work done on that. But when it comes to some progressive movements, there's a lot of urgency compared to some of the conservative movements in New York. There's political action on the ground that's happening, excitement, rallying that creates an urgency that says we have to do this.
We have to do it now. Morgan, we got to run Morgan C. Mullings, her first appearance on the Bronx Buzz. We're going to assume it won't be her last, and we're going to hope it's not her last. Thank you for writing about it. Thank you for putting it out in Politics New York. We're going to keep reading what you write, and we'll invite you back to talk all about it, just like we did today.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. That's right. I didn't even say, I'm so involved in the issue. We didn't say happy holidays to everybody. All right. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, a videographer who's doing something on Kwanzaa. Fantastic video. Don't go away.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercer Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at bronxnet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
To the world.
BronxNet.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I am incredibly excited, and I know you're going to be excited too when you see what we've got in our second segment. We are going to talk with two I'm looking at a teaching artist, social justice educator. These people are really doing some great stuff in the Bronx and elsewhere. So let's say good evening to our friend Fyütch. Nice to have you back on our programs.
Thank you, Gary. What's up, everybody? Glad to be back.
And also Culture Queen is here with us. Nice to have you with us.
Hello.
And so we've got Kwanzaa is coming up. We know that. We're going to say happy holidays to everybody. And, I'm going to start this in a way with a political thing. Black Lives Matter was a very important thing from a political point of view to establish certain injustices in our society. But what you guys do is talk about culture and using culture to empower people. I know this because Fyütch has been on the show. So Fyütch, why don't you just talk about the work that you and Culture Queen did on Kwanzaa?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, Culture Queen and I met through a collective organization called Family Music Forward, which was birthed out of low representation for Black artists in children's music, when we recognized that over half of the kids that we serve, of the schools that we go into, because we both have history as teaching artists, are kids who look like us, are Black kids, are kids from neighborhoods that grew up in the neighborhoods that we grew up in. So Family Music Forward is an organization that we connected with through that, and also through the One Tribe Collective, which is a group of 26 Black family music artists who came out with an album. So we both have a few songs on that album actually, and had ended up, the album is now Grammy nominated as of this year. And we also collaborated on this song as a birth of that. So we've gotten closer within the past 6 or so months with this shared mission of what we've been doing.
As I said, and I don't want to keep harping on it, but there has been a great awareness in Black America through Black Lives Matter. I think that I don't want to say a better or worse way of changing people's minds, of establishing identity, is through what you're doing. Culture Queen, I guess that jives right with what you're all about.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what your work is and why you do what you do, and why this Kwanzaa work, and we're going to see a video called the Kwanzaa Slide, why it's so important, especially right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been creating empowering entertainment for your royal children for the past 11 years, but I've been celebrating Kwanzaa. This year makes my 20th anniversary celebrating Kwanzaa and facilitating Kwanzaa programs as a Kwanzaa expert across the country for children, families, schools, museums, all kinds of programs. You name it, I've done it. And the thing that I love about Kwanzaa is it is the ultimate African-American holiday that helps you to celebrate family, culture, and community. And so when Fyütch and I met, we decided that, we wanted to figure out something that we could do together that would be perfect for Kwanzaa, because Kwanzaa has lots of music, but not a line dance. And we thought this would be a great way to teach people about the meaning of the holiday and also how to celebrate it in a really, really fun and exciting way, which is always my approach to teaching Black history, which is to make it fun and exciting and engaging and very empowering. And so we decided, we started working, like Fyütch wasn't in like September or something like that.
I think so. I think that's when we first connected around
September of this year.
Yeah, like
wow. And you've put out you put some real good stuff together. I just want to ask you, Culture Queen, about when you approach culture in this way, when you approach a holiday in this way, it gives kids a chance to reach out and touch it, as opposed to, listen, Hanukkah, Christmas, all these other holidays. I don't want to say it, but they're ancient holidays. This is so modern. And when you talk about family and culture and all the other things, so why don't you just for a moment before we show the video, talk to us about the relevance of Kwanzaa to today. I don't want to say more or less so, but it really feels like it connects almost better than some of the older, more traditional holidays that we have.
Well, Kwanzaa was created in 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karenga, and it is a younger, newer holiday, which I think is really cool because what holiday can you name that you actually can meet the founder? He's still alive. And so 1966, this is, the height of, I don't want to just say the civil rights movement, because African Americans in this country have had this experience from the day since 1619 and before. And so when we talk about making this relevant, Kwanzaa being an African American holiday, it's always been relevant. What Fyütch and I have done with this song is continue to infuse the Black joy. With all that's going on in the world, we want to make sure that even though we make sure that we honor our history and definitely deal with some of the terrible things that have been going on to people who look like us, we still want our people and people who to experience Kwanzaa, to experience the Black joy, excitement that comes from learning and celebrating your history.
Fyütch, who created this Kwanzaa Slide, was it the two of you together kind of doing a little dance step and said, let's come up with something?
Yeah, so right. So she had come to me and said she wanted to do another Kwanzaa song that had dance elements. Gary, have you heard of the Cha-Cha Slide? The electric slide? When you think of that,
yes,
we wanted that.
I have.
Okay, good. We wanted that for Kwanzaa, basically. Because like she said, it's never been done. So there are a few other Kwanzaa songs out there, some that I've done, some that some classic artists have done, like I think Donny Hathaway, some other people as well. Teddy Pendergrass, exactly. So this was definitely a newer type experience. And the fun thing I like to do is make really, really catchy music. So we really connected on the soulful catchiness, dance vibe of it, and just got to work on it really quick.
Let's show it. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is Fyütch and the Culture Queen and the Kwanzaa Slide. Let her rip.
Happy Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa.
Come on everybody and show your pride. Let's do the Kwanzaa Slide. 7 is the magic number. Yeah, it's Kwanzaa time. Family, culture, community. Yeah, you know the vibe. Party don't stop 7 days and nights. Do the Kwanzaa Slide.
Take it to the left. Put your fist up high and turn it all around.
Take it to the right. A rock side to side and shake it down to the ground.
Just slide and then stop.
Slide and then stop. Slide, slide, slip and slide. That's right, do the Kwanzaa Slide. You're cordially invited to the party of the year.
Come on, it's a family affair. Dressed to impress in your red, black, and green.
Looking like African kings and queens.
Do you know what Kwanzaa means?
It means first fruits in Swahili.
Habari gani?
What's the news?
Meet us on the floor with your dancing shoes.
Come on, everybody, and show your pride.
All right, I'm dancing in my seat here. It's completely infected. Fyütch, you work with young people in the Bronx. Have you shown it to them? And can you? I'll assume you have. And can you give us a reaction?
So I've been showing them kind of the what you call it, getting up to the point of the song. So I showed them the cover art of me and Culture Queen in my classroom. I teach middle school this year, so I showed them the cover. Hadn't got to show them the song yet because actually, unfortunately, schools have gone back virtual. But best believe I'm sending it out through our Google Classroom portal to make sure they watch the video and answer a few questions to see what they learned about the holiday.
Culture Queen, a little less familiar with what you do on a daily basis. We know what Fyütch does. Talk to me about reactions that you get on the concept and on the specifics. It's incredibly infectious. I mean, there's no question about it. As I said, I was doing my thing right here, my little seat here.
Well, listen, you're welcome to do the dance and share it.
Thank you.
On a daily basis, I definitely am Culture Queen, but I'm also the Chief Program Officer of Arts for Learning Maryland, also known or formerly known as Young Audiences of Maryland. And we serve 250,000 students, putting arts programs and artists into schools. But this is what I'll say. Yesterday, I had a Kwanzaa program, and I showed it to some students in Florida. And I was watching them do the dance, and they loved it. And so what I think is what we're seeing through social media, on Instagram, and all the places where Fyütch and I have been able to share it thus far, is that everyone loves the song. They love this amazing.
I love it.
Yeah, Fyütch is amazing with his music. Like, I just got to give it up to him. The beat is catchy.
What I want to conclude with is, for each of you, Culture Queen, you can start. Why is this a really good way to communicate with young people and really any people to help them learn their culture, aside from what we see on TV and all that stuff? But what about this works for young people? Culture Queen, you first.
Well, it's ancestral. We're communicating with our children through their history, music, arts integration. This is, when we talk about Black history and culture, we are communicating with our children in a way that is part of who they are. And so when we're reaching them first with their heart and their head. And we're not just reaching the children, we're also reaching and teaching the children and the parents as well.
Fyütch, she said it as well or better than you could have said it.
Better than I could have ever said. No, for real, because it comes down to how we are communicating this. It is very ancestral in nature. I always say, for me personally, it's educate, entertain, and empower. It's all wrapped up in one. The music, the teaching, the joy, everything, the learning. It's just blended into the fabric of everything that I produce artistically.
I'll give you each 15 seconds to just wrap it up. What's next? Fyütch, you can start. What's next for you guys? You're going to continue to collaborate, we assume?
Definitely. Next up is the Grammys. We go to the Grammys next on January 31st. We're in the category Best Children's Music Album with a bunch of other amazing artists. So it's going to be a celebration. We've all kind of reached a new plateau. So we're really excited.
Does Uncle Gary get a vote? Because if so...
I wish. It's a Recording Academy members only, but I wish you could.
And Culture Queen, for you, what's next? Same kind of thing? You guys are going together?
The same thing. We're going to be there with all of our tribe members of All One Tribe Collective, and want to give them a huge shout out for even introducing us to each other so that we can create like this.
We need more of this, not only in Black and African culture, but in every culture. This is how we communicate. This is how, for me, the people of the Bronx get along. But we do it through our music and our cultures, plural. And you guys are just right at the top of the list. Fyütch, thank you so much. And Culture Queen, nice to meet you. And onward and upward, more and more and more. That's what we want to see.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
That's it. We're going to wish everybody happy holidays, happy New Year, Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa. And you know what happens next? We want to thank our reporter Morgan Mullings for her great work on the City Council Non-Citizen Voting Act. And you know what's going to happen. We'll see you next week. Holidays or not, we're here. Good night.